The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him might not perish, but might have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him will not be condemned, but whoever does not believe has already been condemned, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today's Gospel on Trinity Sunday is only 3 sentences. So you know that someone in the Vatican years ago had a sense of humor, or that they must have been really hurting for comedy the day the lectionary was arranged. Today is Trinity Sunday, and like the Trinity, we're going to travel through time and space. Last weekend, with the launch of the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, our sights were once again set on space. If nothing else, perhaps as a brief distraction from the difficulties of the pandemic and riots here on terra firma. But I'd like to look further back in the US space program, some 30 years back and more, to the Voyager 1 space probe. The objective of this space probe, launched in 1977, was to study the outer solar system. And as of this weekend, Voyager 1 still transmits data to Earth and has traveled some 13.8 billion miles. In its early stages of the mission, Voyager 1 primarily took pictures of planets in our solar system that had otherwise been limited in study, notably Jupiter and Saturn. But 13 years into its mission, NASA sent the command to Voyager 1 to swivel around, maintaining its trajectory, but to swivel its camera to take a picture of everything it had left behind, a kind of galactic selfie. And one picture presents the dark backdrop of space with faint streaks of sunlight looking more like lens flares than anything else. Nothing all that impressive, especially in the context of the other photos it had taken. There was no Jovian hurricane, no rings of Saturn. Examining this particular photograph, one of the scientists saw a speck, no larger than a pixel, in one of the sunbeams, and they thought it was a piece of dust on the glossy photo. But on closer inspection, the team of scientists realized that's us. That's Earth. American astronomer Carl Sagan titled this photo "Pale Blue Dot," and of it, he said, "To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known." There's something to Carl Sagan's, if secular, assessment. Even from a simply natural perspective, the created world calls for stewardship and charity. But as people of faith, we know that the natural perspective isn't it. It isn't where we stop. So let's travel further back in time, to 6th century Italy, to the cell of a simple monk who sits at his window gazing at the same night sky that Voyager saw, that night sky just before dawn. This monk is Saint Benedict. Pope St. Gregory the Great recounts this scene in his biography of St. Benedict, where he writes, "Standing there, all of a sudden in the dead of night, as Benedict looked forth, he saw a light that banished away the darkness of the night, and glittered with such brightness that the light which shone in the midst of darkness was far more clear than the light of day. During this vision, a marvelously strange thing followed. The whole world, gathered together, as it were, under one beam of the sun, was presented before his eyes. In a single ray of light, Saint Benedict could see all of creation summed up. In a way, he saw the same image captured by Voyager 1. But he didn't need $900 million, nor to travel 4 billion miles to see it. As a man of deep prayer, who conversed with God daily, all it took was a single sunbeam. God daily, all it took was a single sunbeam. I suspect that St. Benedict knew Genesis better than any theologian of his day. In those wee hours of the morning, Benedict was contemplating that first creature, light, and in it could see not only the sum of all creation, but a resemblance of the Creator himself. Some 1,200 years after Benedict, the English poet William Blake echoed this in the opening lines of his poem, Auguries of Innocence. To see a world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Today in our Abbey Church, at our conventual Mass, those same realities are present. Even the architecture reflects it. The light, the first creature, beams upon the ambo, not this one here, but our permanent one, literally highlighting the liturgy of the Word. But by now it has shifted to the altar as we shift to the liturgy of the Eucharist. And in a few minutes, the main celebrant will elevate the consecrated host and wine, surrounded, illuminated by light. That first creature beholds its Creator. In a single ray of sunlight, we behold our infinite God. We hold that infinity in the palm of our hands, and in this hour of prayer, we encounter eternity. To reflect a bit longer on the creation accounts of Genesis, in light of the riots and hatred we are seeing today, we would do well to recall the first 2 chapters of Genesis. We have already seen how the natural can, through grace, open our eyes to the supernatural. The same is true of our humanity. So let's time travel to the beginning. In Genesis 1, God specifically says, when about to create humanity, "Let us make human beings in our image, after our likeness." And if you missed it, Genesis reiterates, God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. The creation account of Genesis 2 offers the same truth, though from a different perspective, wherein God shapes humanity, Adam, from the clay, Adamah. The image is much like that of a potter, pressing the clay into shape, suggesting that God leaves his fingerprints on that humanity. Both creation accounts present the imago Dei, the image of God, as found in our common humanity. Today's gospel reminds us of God taking it one step further. Because he so loved us, he sent his only Son. The Church Fathers point out that in a very real way, God was reminding us through the incarnation of our original dignity that had been lost in original sin. A dignity both natural, that is, according to our nature, and supernatural, bearing the image and likeness of our God. A dignity found in every human being, regardless of race or religion. And one last time travel before returning to our own day. In 1940, Charlie Chaplin wrote, directed, produced, scored, and starred in a political satire comedy drama, The Great Dictator. I present his closing speech as true in his day as it is in ours. I should like to help everyone, if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white, we all want to help each other. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. And this world has room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but have shut ourselves in. Machinery has given abundance. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. Not much of a homily on the deep truths of the Trinity, but how can we hope to fully understand it if we do not first love and understand the humanity that he created?